Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. So great to have you with us today. I am a familiar face to many of you, but I'm a new face to some of you. My name is Jennifer Bober. I work in marketing and communications with Renewal International, and we are so thrilled to have this wonderful new partnership with Parish Catalyst. And so today we're going to hand things over to John Poinevent, who's going to be talking to you about virtual learning communities through Parish Catalyst. So welcome, John. So great to have you with us.
Thank you, Jen. And it's been a lot of fun and exciting to become part of this team and just to get to know the Renew team and to see how we are such a great partnership together. If you're new to Parish Catalyst and you are a longtime Renew fan or participant, I'll introduce a little bit about our organization to you, about what we do, and explain how we go hand in hand with what Renew is doing, and our ministries will work great together.
So I'm going to go away and leave things to John. So
okay.
Thank you, John.
All right, and Jen will be back at the end. We're going to have some Q&A at the end, and if you look at the bottom of your screen there, you'll see a chat button and a Q&A button. If you hit chat, that'll open up the chat window, and that is not for you to necessarily chat with each other. It's actually for us to post links to things that you might be interested in. So we'll post a link to the Parish Catalyst website, to how you can learn more about virtual learning communities, to the Renew website and resources as well. And then the Q&A button is if you want to ask questions about the topic we're talking about today. Just click that Q&A button and type in there your question, and Jen will come back at the end and we'll answer those questions together. So with that said, why don't I go ahead and introduce our topic for the day and introduce Parish Catalyst to you a little bit more, especially if you're new to Parish Catalyst. So here we go. So Parish Catalyst is a platform for parish renewal. We're not a program necessarily, although we do say on our website that we offer some programs, but we're more a platform and a process. And what that means is that as you work with Parish Catalyst, we don't have this super prescriptive program that's like, here is A, B, C, D, exactly what you do, exactly the way that we tell you to do it. But more, we provide a platform and a process for you to learn and discern and collaborate with others, which I'll talk more about in a moment. Our mission is to encourage Catholic leaders to think creatively, act courageously, and renew the church. And I think that mission statement we came up with long before partnering with Renew was ever even in the conversation. And I thought it was really serendipitous that our mission statement, our new mission statement, had the word renew in it. But we do this in a lot of ways. We do it through learning communities, which you'll hear about today. We do it through workshops with specific parishes. If your parish wants us to work with you directly, we do that. And then we also do it through our own webinars, which you can register for. You'll get more information about that in the email that comes out after this webinar. So today we're talking about our virtual learning community. We've been doing learning communities for about 6 years. We've had over 70 parishes participate in them. And I'll talk in a few minutes about what is a learning community and how does it work. But first I want to talk about why we do learning communities. We always want to start with why at Parish Catalyst. So why would a parish become a part of a learning community? And we start with this foundational philosophy that we have at Parish Catalyst, and it's from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And it's this idea that you don't achieve greatness if you settle for goodness. We say one of the most difficult models to change is one that's working. So we tend to be apathetic or complacent about things that are good, that we're not getting any complaints about, we're not getting any hate mail about, nobody's upset about. And we can then make the mistake of focusing on the urgent, which is kind of like putting out fires. And then nothing ever becomes really great. And Jim coined this quote in his book, "Good is the enemy of great." And isn't that so true? Like I said, if things are not a problem, if they're not broken, if we're not getting complaints about them, we tend to leave them as they are, and good becomes the enemy of great. There's an ad campaign you may have seen recently that focuses on this, and it says, "Just okay is not okay." And when I look at the church, and when I look at the business of the church, which is impacting people's lives, is just okay ever okay? Like, if we really believe people's lives and their future is at stake, and when we look at the median age of disaffiliation, as John Vitek's research shows us, that the median age is 13. And then we look at our sacramental prep, and when we look at kids that are going through religious education and through confirmation, if someone says, "How's your confirmation program?" can we ever say it's okay if we look at the median age of disaffiliation being 13? So one thing that Parish Catalyst really focuses on is helping us not be complacent or okay with okay. And that requires one thing: to break out of that mindset, to break out of that trap. And it requires this, what we call a 4-letter word in the church. And it's only a 4-letter word in church because it's technically a 6-letter word, and that is the word change. Change is necessary for things to become great. And if we're going to encounter change in our parish, if we're going to encounter renewal and ongoing renewal, and really continually seeing people's lives change for the better, then we have to change. And we fall into this trap sometimes of being unwilling to change, but wishing things were different. I've heard it said that the only two things that people complain about in the church are the way things are and change. But we can't just wish things to be different. We can't just wish that the next generation will like what we used to like, or that things that were once effective and will somehow become effective again. I found this cartoon to be pretty entertaining and sadly accurate. We can't just sit around and wonder, well, maybe something magical will happen if we don't change anything, and people will come back, and young families will get engaged, and people will start giving again. It's not just going to happen. This one is a little less funny and possibly more accurate. Instead of risking anything new, let's play it safe by continuing our slow decline into obsolescence. I think if we're honest, and we take a look at the church at large, we look at the last 50 years, we would say that there is a chart there that could look like a slow decline into obsolescence for the public at large in their perception of the church. So how do we change that? That should set a fire under us to change. Well, this is extraordinarily true, and that is that effective change needs a process and a strategy. And as we talk to you today about learning communities and why that might be helpful for you, I want to ask you, when it comes to change at your parish, do you have a process for evaluating, for exploring, and for empowering change at your parish? Do you have a process, a path that you know to follow in order to walk through that, discern that, and make decisions that become strategy and outcomes? And if you don't, then I would ask you to consider being a part of what we do, because that is what we help parishes to do. I'll give you a little peek inside of how that works at Parish Catalyst, how that works with a learning community. And it's something that we call results-based conversations. This is how we work. And results-based conversations happen when we bring a cohort together, which I'll explain more about that later, but it's about 50 parish leaders in a room together. And we do this. First, we have actions that we bring into the process as Parish Catalyst. We bring knowledge, we bring in experts, all different areas of parish renewal and discipleship. We have speakers and presenters that will bring hopefully new knowledge and information and ideas to you, practices, models of other parishes. And then we help you take that knowledge and process it to gain better understanding. So we'll have you do exercises within your parish team to process this information, to ask yourselves, how are we doing in this area now? How could we get better in this? Or here's some new ideas. Let's see how that might work if we test drove that at our parish. And sometimes you'll be doing that in mixed groups with other parish leaders to glean from their ideas. And from that knowledge and understanding, we guide you in creating a strategic plan that has decisions and actions attached to it. Every time you come into a Parish Catalyst meeting, whether it be in person or virtually online, you will leave with a strategic plan for your parish that has goals, that has action steps, that has owners of those action steps, that has measurables as to how we will define if we're gaining success in that. And that is a plan. Now, we all know plans change, and that's why we have 4 meetings over 18 months, because we have to adapt those plans and to pivot some things. But you have decisions down when you leave that you are going to put into action. Now, the other part of results-based conversations, which is what you will bring to the table as a participant, is attitudes. You've got to start with a sense of discovery. You've got to have a willingness and an openness to new ideas, or even to old ideas that you tried before, but you may need to revisit. So you've got to have a sense of discovery. You cannot have a mindset of, well, we've always done it this way. That'll never work at our parish. We don't do that. Those are things that just we call conversation killers. They just destroy creativity and they destroy innovation. The second thing that you bring is your presence. You stay focused and engaged, and you commit to bring your presence, your mind and your heart and your ideas into this process, and to stay focused as we have these meetings. And then a work to win mindset, that in participating, it's not just some conference you're going to where you're going to take some notes and go home and put that on your desk and not do anything about it. You're coming to this to roll up your sleeves and to work to win, not just a tiny improvement at your parish, but to really see some breakthrough in things at your parish. So that's how we work through results-based conversations. This learning community that we do is called a dynamic discipleship learning community, because we believe disciples are the things that we're called to create in parish life. We're called to form disciples, and that they will also make disciples. And that these are dynamic people whose faith is animated and alive, and that really impacts the lives of others. That's what our goal is. So as a part of this dynamic discipleship journey, we ask every parish to ask themselves these 3 questions continually. And that is, if our mission is to make disciples, what is a disciple? How do we define that? What language do we use to identify that and to plan for that and to measure it? And at Parish Catalyst, we give you some of that language, help you define those characteristics. And then how are we as a parish making disciples? What is our way? And then lastly, is our way working? We got to continually evaluate, is our way of making disciples working? Because what worked 5 years ago doesn't work today. Listen, with COVID, what worked 6 months ago doesn't work today. So we've got to continue to evaluate, is our way working? What might we need to change? So I want to go over with you some of the topics that are covered in this 18-month period in our gatherings. One, of course, is forming dynamic disciples. What does that look like? How does that work? What will work within the context of your parish best? We work on some leadership development with your team that you have around you and your team of key volunteers and leaders in the parish. If those people don't share your vision for being a discipleship based parish, then you've got to develop them, or you've got to find people that do. It takes a team to transform a parish. How do we create thriving small groups? And I don't just mean small groups in the sense of 10 people that are assigned to a group to study the Bible together or to pray together. Small groups in all areas, within ministries, within sacramental prep. How do we use this idea of moving people from rows into circles to create deeper discipleship and spiritual growth? Growing volunteers. Any parishes out there that are watching, could you use more volunteers and more dedicated, joy-filled, servant-hearted volunteers? We want to talk to you about how we can help you grow that in your parish. Creating a discipleship culture where in every area of your parish, whether it be sacramental prep, religious education, serving in the liturgy, in every area and every minister of your parish, people are encountering a discipleship culture. And then lastly, reaching the next generation, young families, millennials, the iGen. How do we do that? These are all topics that we cover and work with you in developing at your parish as a part of a learning community. I'll show you just a few pages from our website to talk about more specifically how we do it. But a learning community is a cohort of 10 to 12 pastors and their 3 or 4 top leaders at their parish. And these are people that are involved in creating and implementing ministry and discipleship at your parish. And so that ends up being about 40 or 50 or 60 people. We have 4 sessions over 18 months. So we'll meet for 2 days in November. We'll meet again 6 months after that for 2 days. I think that's April. And then we'll meet again after that the following November. And so then we'll meet one more time in April again, March or April. And that'll be 4 2-day sessions. And in each of those sessions, you will evaluate your parish, where you're at right now. You will explore new ideas. You'll learn new information. You'll explore how that might work at your parish. And then you'll create a plan, a 6-month strategic plan that you will discuss with these other parishes. You will leave and implement that plan. And in 6 months, you'll come back and tell us how that's going. And we'll start to work on what we need to change and what needs to shift to adapt to the current conditions. In between each of those meetings, we'll have a check-in, a coaching call with you and your leadership team. And that'll even help us decide how we design the next meeting based on the feedback that we're getting from you as to the challenges that you're facing. So again, 10 to 12 teams, pastor and their key leaders, 4 2-day sessions over the period of 18 months. And our experience tells us and our research tells us that parishes that engage in this process and embrace it wholeheartedly experience renewal. If you go to our website, you can see our impact report, which is a 5-year study of parishes that have been through Parish Catalyst Learning Communities. And I think the numbers are 80 to 90% that report significant improvement in all those areas that I just described to you earlier. Want to also let you know in January, we're starting diocesan-based learning communities. So if you're watching this webinar and you work for a diocese, we do national learning communities where leaders from all over the country come together and are in a cohort. And then we also do them within a diocese where 10 to 12 parishes within a diocese come together in this cohort, kind of a deanery of sorts. And the benefit of that is that you have pastors that live in the same region that are facing a lot of the same cultural challenges that are working through this together, and they can continue to encourage and support each other in their area. And this can really bring some synergy into a diocese where you have 10 to 12 parishes that are really embracing making disciples. So if you have any questions about this, go ahead and submit them through that Q&A button. And we'll answer those at the end. I'll answer one right now. How many on a team and who? as I said, it's a pastor and I'll say 3 to 5 leaders. And it would depend on the different staff that you have at your parish. You know, depending on the size of your staff, you may have people wearing multiple hats or individuals in roles. But I would say if you have somebody who's over religious education, sacramental prep, small groups, if you have a director of evangelization, obviously, maybe your director of liturgy, if they're really involved in shaping the culture of the parish. And it could be some key volunteers. Maybe you're a smaller parish that has a lot of volunteers leading in these areas, leading RCIA, sacramental prep, involve those people. With it being a virtual learning community, you can include more people because you're not having to worry about travel expenses or people leaving for 3 or 4 days. So that's pretty great at all. The dates in November are November 9th and 10th. That's a Monday and a Tuesday. And it'll be from about, depending on what part of the country you're in, it'll be 6 hours, but it'll be about like 9 to 3 or 10 to 4, depending on what time zone you're in. I know that sounds like a lot of time, but to be on Zoom, but it's very interactive. And we're going to show you a few interviews now, and you'll see Chad James specifically was a participant in the last virtual learning community meeting, and he talks about that experience and how it exceeded his expectations. This question is, are the sessions virtual? Can they work this way? Absolutely. And we'll talk about that in Chad's interview. And we'll also talk about the cost at the end and how we can work with your parish on that. So let's go now. I'm going to share with you a few interviews. The first is with Bishop Michael Saporito. Now, Bishop Michael was a pastor at St. Helens in Westfield, New Jersey. And he went through our first learning community, which also included St. Benedict's Parish. It included Father Michael White's parish. It included some great Catholic parishes, but they were our first. And he's going to talk about his experience and why he chose to be a part of a virtual learning community. Of a learning community. We didn't have virtual back then. Let's take a look at that now.
All right, Father Michael, thank you so much for joining us once again. Appreciate you coming back, and want to just hear about your experience in a learning community. And I wanted to start by asking, why did you feel compelled as a pastor to be involved in something like Parish Catalyst? What were the issues that you were wrestling with that led you to seek out some sort of parish renewal program?
I think I'd probably been a priest, John, for about I'd say about 21 years at that point. And I guess what I began to notice is that everything that I had learned or knew or read about was just leading me to see the same results. And what I mean by results were, I didn't feel like we were impacting people's faith lives in the way that I thought we could. And I didn't really know why, but there were many things that, we would hold meetings among parish staff, parish leaders, and very often, even 21 years later, the same solutions, the same processes, the same things were just being talked about. Here's the way to go about it. Here's the way to do it. And I felt like it was just the same old. And I felt after 21 years, I had tried that method enough. And it was time for me to kind of be looking, elsewhere. And so that's what really got myself curious about what other kinds of things were out there for parish ministry and for church renewal. And I felt like we're in a lull place. And I will say, even personally for myself, as well as for the church at large, and we needed some kind of a spark somewhere.
So you had a sense that there must be more. And I love that you included you personally as well, because I think pastors need to know this is also a personal journey. It is something that's going to impact your own faith, your own life, and that's a good thing. We all need that. And And you also had that feeling of, the definition of insanity, of continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results.
Right.
So with that in mind, why did you choose Parish Catalyst out of the other options that are out there?
Well, so I was, invited after I had done, so I was in the original group of 12 community, the first learning community Parish Catalyst ever had. And so at first it was just that I answered some questions to a survey that Parish Catalyst was taking among church leaders. And then I was invited to this, into this process. And I think that I was just, the depth of the questions they were asking, the chance to be with church leaders outside of my general area. I could learn the wisdom from others who were trying to do the same thing that I was. They had made it clear at Parish Catalyst that they were looking for motivated leaders. So it seemed exciting to get into the room with those kinds of people and to be able to, share our thoughts together. In the beginning, that was especially what I think was, attractive to me without having experienced anything of what was going to take place.
Describe the meeting process, knowing that yours was in person. This is going to be virtual, but it's going to be the same process. What was it like going through that process as a pastor?
So I think, obviously, I was going with just trying to be open, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And I thought we were going to get into the room and just share our various ideas. Like you said, I knew that we were going to be in the room with some of the bigger names that you just mentioned there. And it was going to be great to, pick their brains and kind of thing. And at first, I guess I was expecting that it was all going to be about imitation, meaning we were going to share ideas and then try to imitate or grow those ideas across the spectrum of the churches that were there. And while that indeed could happen, I think what I actually found there was something even deeper or richer. And that was that Parish Catalyst was not selling you a program, a process, something that you had to run with step A, B, and C. We were really dealing about principles. So our learning community was organized around growing disciples. And so that was the purpose of our cohort and our coming together. And so we had input from speakers that would then provide us with concepts about and thought patterns about how one would go to grow disciples. And we were not just talking about numbers, but we were talking about, depth of people's faith. And so that was really, first of all, those talks would be like, wow, it's great to just even hear the input. But then what happened next was we would go to do these exercises, and now it wasn't, that every church was doing things in the same way or things. Now we sat with our own parish team, the pastor and our parish team, and we were looking at the specifics of our parish community. How do these principles apply to our reality, not somebody else's reality, but our reality? And we began to then brainstorm through the creative process that Catalyst would use, either through scenarios or making specific plans to think through these concepts and kind of work through how we could make a pastoral plan for our parish. And it didn't involve, so in other words, it took things like, so often in parish planning, people say, well, I don't have the money to do this. I don't have that talented staff. I don't have, I don't have a staff of 20 people. We only have a couple of people. And really, it doesn't matter what the size of your community is, because we're not trying, Catalyst is not trying to, the word catalyst is exactly what it's trying to do. It's trying to really give some introduction to getting us to think creatively about our parish community as it is and lead it to grow, so that we could see growth in the lives of our parishioners.
I think that is such an important point that you make there, that it doesn't matter what size, it matters really the creative mind and courage of the staff, pastor. How much did the accountability part of being in a cohort with other parishes over an extended period of time play into actually getting things done?
More important than I ever realized. I would say that, when you were, you had your 2.5 days or whatever that we were together, and then we would go home, and we'd come home for a few months, and then, you had your pastoral plan, so to speak, or what you thought you were going to accomplish. And then you had to, come back and tell people, well, how's that going? Or just a couple follow-up questions. And it wasn't to put you on the spot. It was just to say, hey, how's it going? What were let's evaluate, you had those plans, you had those great ideas. You felt like you were in a really good place when you went home. How did reality hit that plan? And I think the fact that we were measuring it and things, we were holding ourselves to timetables and trying to do things was very, very important. So ideas didn't die at the idea table. They just, the accountability helped us to recognize the fact that we had to measure progress, we had to measure where we were, and that was an important part to moving forward on any plan that we put together. And it helped to keep the plans realistic too. If early plans said, wow, we thought we were going to be able to go home and just do this because we were all filled with enthusiasm. And when we went home, if people didn't share our enthusiasm about that, how we needed to work hard at explaining why we were doing those kinds of things. So maybe our timeline was too aggressive, or our methodology was needed to be thought about in a little bit, of a better way. But, and those things were okay. But the fact that we had boundaries on the time and accountability, there was a due date, so to speak, did help us to progress and to get things done.
Yeah, it's amazing how much a due date and accountability motivate us to actually act on something. And measuring things, I've heard it said, you can't improve anything that you don't measure. Yeah. And so that's an important part of it. One thing we talk about at the end of Parish Catalyst gatherings is what's something during this session that stood out to you as like an aha moment, kind of light bulb moment or awakening. When you look back at your whole learning community time, is there an aha moment that you remember that really was a breakthrough for you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want something, you have to aim for it. So in other words, if I want disciples, everything that we did as a church needed to lead people to make those choices. We couldn't make them disciples, but we were going to provide the opportunities, the chances for growth. We were going to call people to grow in their faith. And we needed to build those things intentionally into what we were doing, not just spreading seeds by, growing all kinds of different ministries and hoping that it took. Intentionality is the word that always stuck out for me in that. That was like, wow, and it made perfect sense intellectually, but the way that I think that I had learned to do parish work was, just create as many multiple opportunities as you can for people to plug in, and they will plug in somewhere, and and the job will be done. And that's exactly where we were. That had gone flat for me. And then I recognized that when I learned, through some of the presenters, that intentionality was key. Why, to ask ourselves why we were doing some of the things, and could we answer the question how what we're going to do was going to lead us to make disciples. And when we couldn't answer those questions ourselves with some of the things that we were doing, then we knew that we needed to look at that, not for just things that we were doing, but anything that we were going to create in the future. That was a huge aha moment for me.
Be strategic, be intentional, and don't confuse activity for productivity, right? Like,
even from the preaching standpoint, we'd be happy to say, oh, people felt good about what you said. And I remember one of the presenters saying, but, maybe one of the reasons people don't engage with what we sometimes, say in terms of homilies and things like that are because we don't ask them to do anything as a result. Like we it's great that people hear us, listen to us, and maybe even learn from us as preachers. But then, okay, what are we asking them to do with what we just gave them? And that led to a lot of good creativity when I brought that home, and we started to think about the ways that we can engage people with those kind of things.
Awesome. What stands out to you today? What about that experience has carried with you today in your role in leading the church?
Yeah. Well, I think that number one, that we have to be clear about what our mission is. What are we aiming for? I know that can sound very businesslike and everything like that, but you have to know where what you're about, what you're trying to do, and you before you can set out on doing anything. And so keeping that mission clear and fresh and before us. And then I think the process that we used in Catalyst of, okay, when we got down to, okay, you have the big picture, where you're headed, what the goal is, and now we're going to fill it with the, the what, how, who was responsible, what was the timeline that we anticipated, was there any other work that we needed to do ahead of time, and that we weren't just, even though somebody was ultimately responsible for it, that we were also sharers. We were all, the whole parish team, whether it's your paid employees or your volunteer ministers, we're in on whatever we came up with, together in making those things happen. That it wasn't just, okay, good, somebody took responsibility for it, good luck, you don't need any of us. Well, no, we were all in on that together, so that we were using our energy and our skills and gifts in a way that could bring about, those things that we had made plans for. So some of the planning methods and making sure, like I said, before when we were talking about keeping ourselves accountable, that we were internally keeping ourselves accountable. Our chart of, forcing ourselves to put it on a piece of paper and on a chart, whether it's a piece of paper or computer, you see what I'm getting at, is just some kind of a chart that says, what, who, when, where, and going back to that and saying, okay, where are we with this? This is what we said we wanted to do. Are we there? Is there more work to be done? Why did we let this go? Did it become irrelevant because something else happened? Or did we get pulled, for whatever reasons? And again, that helps you to not always just be pulled by, because so many things happen in church life on a daily basis, and you can always, the next important thing is the next, phone call or person that comes to the office. But what about the ultimate goals of where your church is going? And it helps you to keep on target for those kinds of things in there. So those are some lasting things that have stayed with me from a process point. From a personal point, I have continued to, I use a coach, a personal coach that helps me with, help to be a better leader. I started to develop more leadership skills. I recognized that I was short on those kinds of things. I was an appointed leader, but I didn't have, how do you lead change? How do you do that? And I needed encouragement, and I needed some skill sets, and I needed to think through those kinds of things. So having that kind of support was helpful for me. So it was growing on many different levels as a result of this process.
I think that's an important part to remember, is that the experience of a learning community is not just about your parish. It's about you personally, but it's also equipping your team and yourself with skills and processes that are transferable throughout the parish.
Right.
That it's not just an 18-month program that you finish and you're done. The planning methods and the strategy thinking will continue on, whether it be sacramental prep or a parish festival, anything that you're planning that you want to be strategic about. This process will leave you with tools and templates that are transferable to all of that. Mm-hmm. If you had a pastor that was asking you if they should be involved, maybe they had concerns about the investment of resources or time or anything like that, and they were unsure, what would you tell them?
I think the thing that I would say to them, John, is, the word investment implies that you're going to put, time and effort and money behind the things that are important to you. You're making an investment in the future of your ministry as a parish community and as a church to, continue to grow. And I think, and I said, not just grow in numbers, but just grow in a sense of being, we talk about, becoming engaged communities and communities that lead people to grow, and they're called to be disciples of Jesus Christ. But we really, to be able to do that with all the challenges that we face, takes strategic planning. And sometimes it's just a skill that's not taught a lot in seminary. It's not taught a lot in other forums. It's hard for us to get our hands on that specifically designed for church ministry. And so I think Catalyst provides that opportunity to give yourself room for just more than just scheduling events, but thinking about what those events are meant to accomplish and how we can really evaluate our parish for the present and for the future, and start doing the things that we have to do now, and not waiting until some crisis or critical moment comes and we're behind the eight ball and then we're desperate, and recognizing that this is a process and it takes time, this is an investment that's worthwhile because it will renew yourself. It will renew you in working with others and becoming collaborators with others. And I would guarantee that you're going to see some kind of result of that you're going to take with you, that you're going to really, really like, that you didn't think was possible.
Well, thank you so much. And we are so proud of you and the work that you're doing there. And we're grateful to have been a part of it. And please come back and see us again sometime soon and let us know what's going on there in Newark.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
I always love hearing from Bishop Michael, and you just see his heart and his desire that just okay is not okay. Like he said, there must be more. We must be able to do a better job of reaching people and engaging them in a life-changing spiritual journey. So love hearing from him about that. And I want to go to a couple more people now before we wrap up. These are just about 8 minutes each. The first one is Kara Etty, and she is at Old St. Pat's in Chicago. She's the director of ministries there. And before we do, I just want to touch on a few of the questions. I answered them via text, but I want to just touch on them. Considering COVID, how we meet, this is a virtual learning community. So you'll be in a Zoom meeting like this, but it'll be a big meeting, which Chad will talk about at the end, but we'll break you off into smaller groups for discussion, for workshopping things, for strategic planning. Is it big picture visioning, or is it more emphasis on the nitty-gritty strategic planning? Yes, it's both. Because that nitty-gritty strategic planning requires big picture vision in order to follow the mission and the vision of the parish. So we do both of those. And is there an opportunity for more coaching calls than just one in between meetings? If you're participating in a learning community, you're always open to reach out to us, email, call us. But we do have a leadership coaching program where you have a coaching call twice a month, probably with me, but it could be someone else in the organization. And we just talk through, what are your goals right now? What are the challenges you're facing? And we coach alongside you on a regular basis to help you grow as a leader and to address the issues that you're facing on a weekly basis. So, all right, with that said, I'm going to go to this brief conversation with Kara, just a little different perspective. As I said, she's the Director of Ministries at Old St. Pat's in Chicago. Kara, thank you for joining me. So glad that you're here. And I just want to start by just asking, what are some things that stood out to you from your learning community experience?
Yeah. First of all, it was just it was an honor and such a wonderful opportunity. Because I think, every parish, every local church, you have your own unique situations. And we definitely felt like our history, our past, our current moment was, maybe it was that terminal uniqueness. Like we thought, oh, well, there's just nobody else that we can talk to because there's nobody else that has this experience. And so to be brought together with definitely places that had different just wisdom to offer and different experiences from both coasts, from Canada, or just a Midwest parish in Chicago. But it was so important because what we did have in common was this deep desire to reach further, to push ourselves, to be a community of dynamic, and it also gave us some language of dynamic discipleship. Going into it, we thought, oh gosh, that's interesting language. It's not our external language around our local, our kind of church community. And yet that's exactly what we wanted to be about. And so to be gathered with other parishes and leadership that had that same spirit was so important for us, because then we could no longer stop just kind of within our walls, because I think we had this tendency, and I had been on staff for a number of years before that, we had this tendency of doing like a quick look around to other Catholic parishes or even some non-Catholic parishes and going, well, that's really interesting, but it's such a different context. And then so we would stop looking. We would sort of stop our research, if you will, in some areas. But to be gathered by Parish Catalyst and meet these other amazing, just really just full of life, full of good energy and spirit, all these people, whether they were volunteers on staff or pastors, to just get together with them, and both in the sessions where you're doing all this processing of these keynote speakers and then the workshopping, or to just have these great conversations, and then to just to hear from people about their experience. And then slowly that can translate into, gosh, I never thought about that. I mean, it's from a different angle, but that really pertains to how we do this, or what our teens are experiencing, or this or that. So it was a wonderful experience. I loved that it was spaced out, because one-off, I think, I love retreats. I love all of those things. But then there's that, the week of the high, and then you kind of come back down and you get wrapped right back into your regular life. And so to know, hey, in 6 months, we're going back and we're going to see these people again, and to have those relationships build over time was just so critical. And we're still enjoying the fruits of that many years later.
How did that interaction with the other parishes and the Facebook group afterwards and all of that, how did that affect you as far as accountability? Like you said, so often we go to a conference, we read a book, we do a workshop, and then we go back to just keeping the plate spinning.
Right.
And how did that motivate you to actually take action on some of your ideas?
Absolutely. I think we, maybe like a lot of Catholic parishes, we have a staff that's I think a really good mix of people who have been in church work and theology work for a long time, and then some people who are bringing fresh perspectives from therapy and from different care ministries and education. So we have this tendency to come into meetings and then just lots of ideas and great conversation, like really great conversation. And then the meeting's over and everybody leaves, and it's not that you're not wiser, but you haven't come up with anything. Like there's no plans. And so we can tend to do that on a regular basis on our own. But to be in a structure where not only do you get to throw around ideas and talk and have amazing conversations, but in 6 months, I am actually going to have to come back, and these people know what we stated our goals would be. So when we come back, they're actually going to measure us against our own goals. That was so good and so critical. And it reminded me of, 100 years ago when I played college sports, to be like, gosh, a little accountability is pretty good around here. And I think what's so funny in church, and for a lot of us, we work with populations that, are screaming for better accountability in a church. We just know that there's so much help when you have that. And yet we're not the first ones in line when it comes to acting on like creating systems of accountability at our local level. We want accountability out there, but we're not living it in our day-to-day, in our parish life or our own leadership. So Parish Catalyst, it was such a great experience to have that, to say, we're going to be back there in 6 months and we need to tell them how this went. And so if we were dreaming boldly, fine, we can come back and say, yeah, that did not work, which some of our ideas did not. But we could come back and say, yeah, we tried this. We gave it our all. This is what we learned. What did you learn? What can we learn from? I think it was just really critical for us. And I think there's several of us who say that was one of our greatest takeaways from the Parish Catalyst years that we were actively involved in that.
Yeah, it was a few years ago. And what do you find that you still use today that you learned at Parish Catalyst or that you began to model as a result of Parish Catalyst?
So I think some of the things are sort of high-level things, and then some are the nitty-gritty things that we learned in our Parish Catalyst experience. Some are the relationships. I mean, I still reach out to some of our partners in our cohort to say, what are you guys doing with this? How are you handling this? I mean, even how we were able to do our initiations of our RCIA candidates and catechumens this year. I went right to those Parish Catalyst partners to say, what did it look like? Do you have video? We have a few more weeks ahead of us before we can do it, but I want to know what worked, what didn't. How do you do this safe? How do you show that you're doing this safely? How do people feel comfortable? How do they still feel like they're surrounded in love? So all of those relationships were so important, and we still reach out to those folks today. I think another thing was one of the points of focus for one of the particular weekend gatherings was on leadership development. And at first we sort of thought this was like, yes, we need to develop our parish leaders and empower them. And that was language we had been using and kind of the way we wanted to do things. But I think what we hadn't thought about was our sort of highest levels of leadership and getting coaching. And I think just probably because many of us had been in Catholic ministry for a while, and that language, that emphasis just wasn't there. It was sort of like, well, if you're a pastor or you're high enough in your parish leadership, you just are a good leader, presumably, and you just need to keep getting better on your own. But to say, no, we're going to go out and we're going to look for resources that are going to make us better leaders at our place, because it's not just our religious education leaders and our teen leaders. Yes, it's them, but in order to support those people in the best ways and to help develop these risks that we're going to decide to take, we need to be developing ourselves on the leadership level of pastor and our associates and the rest of us. I think that was a big takeaway. And so to be pulled together by Parish Catalyst and encouraged and saying, hey, you need to, in order to keep your ministry at a high level, you need to have both this help and this accountability. I think those were really key, and we continue to grow from that point.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And we're so proud of St. Pat's. St. Pat's is, a historic parish, but you don't ever just sit in complacency of your past success or your prominence in the city. And that's a lot of the good to great mindset that we try to support and encourage. And we're just so proud of all the fruit coming out of your parish there. Thank you so much, Kara.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor, and I keep learning from all of you, from all the ideas and the wisdom, especially during this time of COVID. So I'm so grateful for all the communities and the cohorts and the relationships and the wisdom. I appreciate it.
All right, and I keep telling these people we're proud of them. we have a saying that our fruit grows on other people's trees. So the fruit of Parish Catalyst is the fruit of the local parish. And when we see parishes committed to fruitfulness and innovation and really not settling just for activity, but striving towards transformation in people's lives, we are proud, because that's us seeing our fruit bearing in the local parish. So we're going to do one more quick conversation, and then I'll answer a couple more questions. But if you've been watching this thing, I'm super skeptical about how people could spend 2 days on Zoom calls, how this could work interactively, virtually. I did a short conversation with Chad James he's at Holy Name in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. He's the director of liturgy there. And he'll just be frank with you about what the experience was like, what his concerns were going in. So let's look at that now. Chad, thank you so much for joining me today. And you know, I asked you specifically to talk to us about your virtual learning community experience, because I know that you are cynical. I know that you have high expectations for things like this, and I know that you'll be honest. So really, for everybody watching that's wondering how could this work, what would this be like for our team? First, tell us just what were your thoughts, fears, concerns going into this virtual gathering of like 50 people?
Sure. Thanks, John. I appreciate you asking. You know, for me, when you first said, hey, we're going to do the whole thing, we're going to do it virtually, we're going to do it essentially exactly the same as if we were in person, meaning a couple of days intensive. And for us, you know, this was right essentially kind of at the beginning of COVID, like maybe a month and a half into COVID. My head about exploded. I thought, there's no way I'm going to sit in front of the computer. There's no way it's going to be valuable. I can't imagine it being interactive. I was really, 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 really not looking forward to it. And in fact, I was even like trying to make sure I had something else to do on the side while I was going through it. So yeah, my expectations going in were pretty low, to be honest. Now, having said that, I know that Parish Catalyst and you guys are pretty high quality folks, and high quality stuff matters to you. So I did temper my cynicism a little bit with that knowledge that I knew you guys would do the best you could with what you had. So no, I was not looking forward to it at all. So I hope that answers that part of that question.
Thank you for the at all clarification. So that being said, I mean, tell us about your experience and you know, how did it differ from those concerns?
Sure. I mean, you know, to be quite frank, it was awkward at first, because I think, you know, none of us had ever really experienced anything like being in a room all together. I think there's 60 or 70 of us in there. I don't know what the number with our group is, John, but it was a little bit awkward at first because there wasn't the kind of classroom vibe going on, and you know, there were no donuts or that type of thing, you know, to kind of get to know one another. But once we got in there, the experience was actually really pretty positive. I found that I could actually stay really focused. So the way you did it, so, you know, it was present a topic, whatever that topic might be, and then we always broke off into these groups, not always, but oftentimes broke off into these small groups. And I thought that that was super slick. You know, all of a sudden John would say, okay, Tammy, press a button. And then poof, we're off into a group with either our own team or members from other parishes, sometimes depending on our focus area, sometimes just randomly or semi-randomly, and sometimes with our group. So I really liked that part of the experience. That was a highlight for me. Another was I found that I could really get focused on the topic itself when it was right in front of me on my computer. And so we could stay super focused, or I could stay super focused. And then additionally, you know, if I missed anything, I missed kind of the kind of water cooler interactions with the other folks. But because of the Facebook group that's set up, we actually could have, you know, some kind of ongoing discussion in the Facebook group as well. throughout the experience. So overall, I would say it was a positive experience. Our team talked about it and said, this is a 10 out of 10 in terms of what we could have done. Now we live in winter half of the year. So would we have liked to go to LA for that April meeting? We sure would have, John. We sure. Matter of fact, we probably should have driven to LA, sat in the hotel, and done our Zooms there, and then and then driven home. But other than that, it was a real positive experience for us.
We are still working on the augmented reality of bringing LA weather to each participant and some of the great snacks that the hotel provides. But aside from that,
well, for now, we'll just have to do something like this, right?
Nice.
I'll just pretend I'm on the beach for the moment.
Great. Yeah, and we provide the same content. We are tweaking it a little bit for COVID, that helping people work on some things that are a little more specific to the challenges they're facing right now. But it's the same process, right? It's content, it's interaction, it's exercises that within your parish team usually, and then working on a strategic plan together. What out of all that, what was the most valuable part that you came away from your meeting with from those 2 days?
I think for me, it was definitely the interaction with the other members of the group in the small groups, as well as just the interaction in the small group with my team. I love the idea that you split us off and you essentially just press the button and poof, we're in a new room. And then it gave us a little countdown timer. It gave us 60 seconds, 30 seconds. So I found that we really had to get succinct with, what we were trying to accomplish. So it actually felt like we accomplished more because we didn't have the sense that we could talk about this again later. So I really liked that. That was good for me, for sure.
Well, you guys are 3 meetings into the process. We got your 4th meeting coming up in October, and looking forward to that and to really finalizing the plans from the 18-month process. If a parish leader was watching this and their parish is kind of struggling with maybe they're struggling with their team structure or with what to do next, or with, how do we get some momentum to move on in this difficult season, what would you tell them about a learning community?
Oh, I would say that our parish was very much in that shape. We were forming a new team. We were trying to decide what our leadership looked like, trying to decide what we're going to do moving forward. And now, again, 3 meetings in. So what is that? That's about a year almost now, I suppose, isn't it, John? We're very clear. We're working. I mean, we do everything based on a set of goals. Our leadership structure is based on what we learned at Parish Catalyst. We're big fans of the learning community. And then in addition, the connection with other folks, not just you and your team, John, but the folks from St. Faustina's Parish or from, any of the other parishes that we've met has been really awesome. So it's just been a great experience. I would highly recommend it to anyone who's considering it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, and look forward to seeing you again here on the Zoom in about a month.
Sounds great, John. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thank you guys for hanging with us till the end. Jen, if you'll come back, I do want to answer the question about cost. And I've typed most of these in the Q&A. But for the 4 meetings, which each is a 2-day meeting, for the 4 meetings, the full learning community time, access to all the resources and tools we talk about, the parish cost is $5,000 for the 18-month learning community journey. I think we could break that up. If you need to make a couple payments, we can do that. But I think you'll find, if you look at consulting or if you look at the cost of bringing in staff members to help you improve your parish, that's a small investment for the outcomes that I think you'll see. Do you have any other questions, Jennifer?
There's one remaining question that someone is kind of a very specific thing, that they're a catechist. I'm not sure what you would think that they're working within a Catholic school, is there something, working with possibly a school situation?
Yeah, I mean, we work primarily with parish teams. We love it when they include their principal or leaders from the school as well. So I would say, if you talk to your pastor and put together a team, a catechist would be a great person to have on a learning community team. Someone who's forming people as disciples, that's who we're working with. So talk to your pastor and see if they might be interested. You can always show them our website, parishcatalyst.org, and go to virtual learning community there, and it'll show you everything you need to know about that.
And I have to say, with Renew, we've done some of this with you, John, and, with our staff at Renew. And it really is something that really works because it's a very universal language in a lot of ways, what you're doing with different situations. So someone's asking, how often do you organize the meetings? Once every 18 months?
Right. We hope to launch another one. Right now, like everyone else, our planning is more short-term than it used to be, right? And I'll use that as a caveat to also say, if you are hesitant to engage in something like this because of COVID, because of quarantine, because of all the turmoil your parish is in, I can think of no better time to go on a journey with 10 other parishes and learn together and plan together. You are in the midst of change right now, like it or not, and it would not hurt you to have other people journeying in that with you, learning with you. I don't think there's any better time than the present to get involved in a learning community. That said, our next virtual national one will probably be after the first of the year. We're gonna hopefully do some diocesan based in January. So I'd say maybe like in February, March, we would probably launch another virtual one. Mary Lou asked about the diocesan based, more information on that. I was
about to say, yeah.
For that, we just want to talk to you personally and find out what the needs of your diocese are and how this might work for your diocese. So just email us info@parishcatalyst.org, or you can email me directly, john@parishcatalyst.org.
And Deacon Tom, hi Tom, is asking about a leadership coaching program.
Yeah, email me directly on that, on the cost, because it depends on the length of commitment that you want to make for that coaching process. So we don't have like a set time period like we do with a learning community. So email me directly about that and we'll talk.
And someone's asking, how do we sign up? Do we have to apply? What do they do?
That's a great question. We'll put some links there in the chat, but also in the email going out to you after this, will be links to register to either nominate your pastor, or if you're a pastor, you can nominate yourself. We highly encourage that. We want to work with leaders that want to embrace change and innovation. The size of your parish is irrelevant. It's more about the leadership, leaders that are creative and courageous. So I'm going to go ahead and drop in here in the chat window. I'll go ahead and drop the application link for a pastor or a parish to be nominated to take part, and encourage you to contact us through that.
And if someone is looking to email you directly, how would they get a hold of you, John?
Just simply john@parishcatalyst.org.
Make it nice and simple.
Yep.
Just look. I don't see any more questions.
All right.
Nope. It seems to be quiet. So I guess we're good for this time around, and hopefully everyone's had a chance now to copy that link, copy John's email, and you'll get an email with the recording probably tomorrow. Yeah. So thank you everyone for being with us today. Thank you so much, John. I know that we have learned so much from you, which is wonderful, that our two organizations, as we come together and learn from each other.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Thanks, Jen.
something else just popped up. Oh, nope, just someone asked, thanking us for bringing them together today. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you shortly in the future on some other webinars.
Great.
All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone.